chapter 12. And it's a strange parable, this one, isn't it? It really is a strange parable. And I'm not sure, I seem to find spend my whole life saying this. I'm not sure it says exactly what we've always thought it says. When we really think about it, what is he saying? Jesus is in the middle of teaching. So he's like in the middle of delivering some great truths, some great sermons, when suddenly someone interrupts him. Don't get any ideas, church. And they ask him a question about inheritance. And do you know what? The more I read this, the more hard done by I feel this guy is. Because it's a fair question to me. It says, Jesus, tell my brother to give me my inheritance. Jesus, tell my brother to give me what is rightfully mine. But instead of stepping in and dealing with it and becoming a kind of judge, Jesus instead tells a story to warn this poor man about greed. He said, life isn't measured by how much you own. It's more important that you are rich towards God. But I thought, is the poor man actually being greedy? So Jesus tells a story about a man who had an older brother, and their father had died. Now, don't imagine that this was necessarily a wealthy man. In fact, it's more likely it was exactly the opposite. We've seen how closely, haven't we, over the last few weeks, we've seen how closely the land was tied to survival. If your crops failed, you couldn't feed your family. It was as simple as that. If your crops thrived, then you could feed your family and possibly sell some stuff too to bring in extra money. Because there was no social security, there was no food bank, there was no welfare system. You relied on your own ability to farm the land to survive. So these brothers would have been working and living off their father's land, but now the father has died. So, question, do we have this, and sorry ladies, this is just to the men here. Do we have any older brothers here this morning? Any single brothers or older brothers? So you're an older brother, Pete. Are you an only child, or are you the eldest? You've got a younger sister. Are there any men here who've got older sisters? So you would be the youngest, but you're the oldest male. Okay, you can put your hands up as well. You're counted in this. Okay, if you are the oldest of the male children, doesn't matter if there are 27 girls in front of you, you get a double portion of inheritance, simply for being born first. Well done, you. Well done. Ladies, even if you're the oldest, you don't get anything, sorry. Right, are there any younger brothers here? So you're brothers, but you've got older brothers, Barry. Right, how many older brothers? 2. So your land, your inheritance would not be split into 3, Barry. It would be split into 4. Your eldest brother, Doug, would get 2. I'm quite pleased with myself, don't ask me to remember any more of them. Your eldest brother would get 2 portions, double what everyone else gets. Then the middle brother gets 1, and you as the wee baby get 1 portion. That's the way it worked. Now, if you've been working all your life on your father's land, just imagine that. You've been working all your life on your father's land, knowing that even a quarter of it, a small portion of it, is going to be yours one day. So you can continue to raise your own family. And then you have sons so that they can help you work the land so that your crops thrive. But you know that one day your portion of land, so your quarter, is going to be split between your sons. Barry, how many sons have you got? 1 son and 1 daughter. 2 daughters. They get nothing, your son gets the lot. Had you had 2 sons, that would have been divided again. Can you see how it works? So you get this land and it's divided, and you end up with a bit that's not very big. But you have to use that to sustain your family. But what if you don't get your inheritance? What if your older brother says, this bit of land is too small to divide up, I'm keeping the lot? You can work for me, but you're not having it. We're not dividing it. How are you then going to make a living to keep your family? And also we know that the land was so linked to the people's relationship with God. This was their little plot. It might only be postage stamp size, but it's their little plot of promised land. It was their tangible link to God, their tangible link to Yahweh. And so realistically, when I read this parable, I read this story, I would expect Jesus to be telling the older brother to get his act into gear, that he's the one being greedy, that he's the one, he needs to give what is not his to keep. But I wonder if Jesus sensed something more in the man's attitude. That actually the question that was asked wasn't just about a piece of land, but actually that it goes much deeper than that. You see, nowhere in the Bible, and we need to get this clear, church, nowhere in the Bible does it say it's wrong to have lots of money. Nowhere. It says, watch your attitude. It says, watch your attitude to what you have. It says, remember that everything you have is a gift from God. It says, be a cheerful giver and give in response to everything that you've received. Malachi chapter 3 in the Old Testament, Malachi chapter 3 verse 10. And this is God speaking about giving. And this is speaking to people who don't actually have a lot, and they're saying, we can't afford to give, God. We can't afford to give to you. And God says this, he says, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. In other words, give what is rightfully mine. Give to God what belongs to him first. And God says, test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it. It's like saying, if you put Jesus first, then actually you might end up in a position where your barns aren't big enough and you need bigger barns. But it's about our attitude. Give to God what is rightfully his. Put God first rather than giving him what's left over, and see how he blesses you. So you see, nowhere does it say that having a lot is wrong, but our attitude to having a lot can be wrong. You can see some puzzled faces at the back. It never says, if you look at money, people say, oh, money is the root of all evil. It isn't. It's the love of money which is the root of all evil. You see, it's not the thing itself, it's the attitude towards it. In the same way, nowhere in the Bible does it say that it's wrong to have nothing. Nowhere does it say it's wrong to have nothing. We don't live in that superstitious culture that says if you're poor, it's because you've angered God. Neither do we live in a culture that says God must be more pleased with you because you have lots more money. That would have been the standard belief in Jesus' time. If you were rich, it was because God was obviously pleased with you and he was blessing you as you deserved. But we know that it's quite often just an accident of birth, isn't it? It's an accident of birth. We all know rich people who are mega rich, who have nothing to do with God. In fact, they live lives absolutely at odds with God's teaching. And I've got friends who work in Albania amongst the poorest of the poor and the outcasts of society. And yet these people are turning to Jesus. They're being saved. So we know we cannot measure godliness by wealth. We can't do it. The problem that we have in our Western modern world is when we start to think that we deserve things, or that we're entitled to things, that we've got a right to things, that we've earned them. When you think that you're superior to the person on minimum wage, or the person struggling to feed themselves and their family, Jesus says, guard against greed. And today we could read that as guard your heart against a sense of entitlement. Guard against demanding your rights. If today, church, you're in a job that pays you enough money to live on, then give thanks to God that he blessed you with an intelligence to learn. Thank him that you had the opportunity to go to a good school, you had an opportunity to study at university, and you have an opportunity to work and have your work well rewarded. If today you're struggling, if you're sitting here or you're listening to this and you've got more month than money, if it's a constant struggle to make ends meet, then guard your heart against envy. Guard your heart against jealousy and bitterness. Your worth is not measured by the size of your house or the comfiness of your shoes or whether you go to the Okavango Delta or to the Isle of Wight on holiday. It's not how much you have that matters. It's your attitude towards what you have. If you have more than you need, then bless others. Church, we've got a box in the foyer where we collect for the food bank and for homeless people, for people who have absolutely nothing. Church, those boxes should be overflowing. We shouldn't be able to get the lid on them every single week as we give generously out of the abundance that God has blessed us with. As we bless others as we have been blessed. We shouldn't be like the world outside that has the attitude, it's mine, it's all mine. I worked for it, I earned it, I deserve it. I had to guard my own heart this week, church. I confess far too much up here at this lectern, don't I? You'll have to lay hands on me later. Apparently confession is good for the soul, so here goes. Adrian and I have talked for years and years and years about travelling the West Highland Way in Scotland by train, by steam train. You know, it's the one that goes over the, what's that thing? No, that bridgey thing with the arches. A viaduct, yeah. It's the one that's in the Harry Potter films. Can you see what I have to put up with, Chair? You all think he's marvellous. And next year, for our sins, we will have been married for 25 years. And the year after that, I turned 50. I know. I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful to either do this train ride either for our anniversary or for my 50th birthday, depending on how much it is. Depends how much. What? Yeah. So I got on the computer and I searched train holidays west coast of Scotland, and this advert popped up for a luxury train holiday. I thought, luxury? Well, it will either be our 25th anniversary or my 50th birthday. You deserve a bit of luxury every now and again. And it's 1 week and it goes all round Scotland, not just the west coast, and it's all inclusive. I thought, all inclusive? It's going to be a bit expensive, you know, but we can save up. And if it's all inclusive, well, we won't need a lot of spending money, you know, postcard here and there, but that's it. So I looked at the price. For a 7-day train holiday round Scotland, where Scottish people live and it rains a lot. Any guesses per person? How much? Did you say 2? More. Not quite. £10,000 per person. We're starting a fund. There'll be a whip round box. £20,000 for a week in Scotland in the rain. Sorry, Louise. I thought, that's obscene. That's an obscene amount of money for a holiday. What? Do we get to keep the train? We'll be borrowing a camper van. We haven't had words yet, but it's But I want to do it by train because you can only go over this viaduct by train. You can only see some of these beautiful sights by train. It's been our dream for a long time. You end up there in the fog, you can't see anything. Could you imagine? You've paid £10,000 per person and all you can see is fog. That'd be just that would be just our luck, wouldn't it? Do you know, I found myself getting really angry. I was like, that's obscene. It shouldn't be allowed. How can it possibly be right to spend that much money on a holiday? And I got filled up with all this righteous anger. I was kidding myself, church. It was jealousy, pure and simple jealousy. masquerading as godly care for the poor, i.e. me. But at the heart of it was jealousy. Guard your hearts, church. It sneaks up on us. It takes us by surprise. The Apostle Paul in Philippians 4 says this. He says, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. And for me, that's the key to understanding our parable today. Boy, is it hard to be content, isn't it? We always want something better. We always want something more. We always want the next thing. It doesn't come easy. Contentment in our Western world does not come easy. Even the Apostle Paul said, I have learned to be content. In other words, it didn't come naturally to him either. He had to train himself. He had to guard his heart. And he can do all this only through God who gives us strength. See, the thing is, we see discontent blatantly, don't we, in the world around us. But sadly, we see it just as much inside the church. Those who don't have, well, they look around at others and want what they have. We've got a name for it, haven't we? We call it keeping up with the Joneses. Those who have want more. Keeping up the lifestyle to which we've become accustomed. Jesus said, guard your heart. It is more important that you have a right relationship with God. The most important thing is your eternal salvation. Your relationship with God through Jesus. You see, we need to recognise, church, that everything we have, even the fact that we can breathe clean air, is a gift from God. We're going to spend time now giving thanks for the many blessings that we have. We're going to do something quite personal. The guys are going to come and play, and we're going to sing a couple of songs. And then you'll see on your tables you've got instructions how to